Hey there, welcome behind the scenes here at Jamie Riddler Studios. I'm Jamie and I'm so happy to be spending this time with you. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how we get to our art and creativity when there's so many other things that are demanding our attention. How many of you relate to that? Um, and I was originally thinking about this in the context of people who have day jobs, but there's also so many people, all of us, who have other responsibilities, sometimes heavy responsibilities, sometimes just very regular life responsibilities. And all of those things take our time and attention and energy. And so how do we still express our creative art? How do we still show up to our art? One of the first things I wanted to talk about is that often, I've worked with clients on this for many, many years. And one of the things I hear most often is how hard it is that when you come home from work or you've done all the things and you have no energy left for your art. And there's one thing I want to remind you of here that we often forget, myself included, and that is that art also gives us energy. And it's the on-ramp that often takes the resource investment, like, you have to get out your paints, you have to fill up your water, you have to clear your space, it's all those things. I know whenever I suddenly decide to do art, it can take me, in half an hour just to get everything ready to do the thing I want to do. And so one tip here is to have that on-ramp prepared in advance. And it doesn't have to be a big thing or a big deal. How can you have a small space ready to go, a clear portion of your desk, a small sketchbook and watercolor set with a water pen? Have you seen those? This is a great way to get to painting. So this is a water pen. You just fill it up with water, and it works perfectly with watercolor. And then I have this little Koi watercolor set, and it actually comes with something you can use for a palette. And then it has a good selection of colors, and they're very nice. I've really enjoyed working with them. So if I have this out and a couple of small pieces of watercolor paper that I've already cut and are ready to go, it's just available to me. Or if you're a writer, just having your journal, or maybe you probably use a laptop, but for me so often it's my journal or paper and a clear desk and a candle, so I can just light that candle and feel like I have transitioned into work time. The how will vary very much depending on you, your circumstance, and the art form that you're pursuing, but it's a thought for you to move forward with. How can I reduce that on-ramp time so that there's not this hurdle for me to get to my work? If it's easy for me to sit down to my work, then usually within a small period of time, all of a sudden, like, the energy starts to lift up and the art starts to nourish and feed you. And it's important to remember that because we often think, oh, I don't have the energy to create. And sometimes we don't, and that's fine. But trying to make it easy to say yes to our creativity. Have a magazine sitting right there. I've got my studio yearbook, and I have a little box that's filled with little bits and pieces of paper so I can cut them out easily and do a little collage or add a little color or add some images to it. I have my washi tape nearby so I can just quickly add some color. And I think this idea of making it easy to sit down so that it takes less energy, and then remembering that art can actually infuse energy into you, is key. The other thing is we often leave our art till last. And I don't just mean, I know you've probably heard this suggestion, and this works for a lot of people, to do it first, to do it early. Not all of us are early birds. And so that isn't always the best suggestion. But if it works for you, awesome. Getting the things that you want to do done first is an awesome strategy, and I offer it up to you, and I hope it works. But the other thing is also to stop requiring the perfect conditions in order that you start creating. So it's like somehow we get in our mind, I have to do all the things. The house has to be clean. I have to have organized my supplies. I have to have responded to all my emails. I have to have obviously done the dishes. I need to have dinner prepared. So we make this massive list of things that are required before we get to do the thing that is so deeply meaningful to us. So letting go of perfection and letting those dishes wait just a little bit longer. Being okay with a certain level of creative mess, whatever it is, because one of the things we also know is that our resistance can hide in those needs. We might be finding it a little hard to get to our art. We're feeling a little intimidated, a little scared, a little unsure, a little like we're not ready to confront our art. And so instead, we need to clean out our drawers. So that is another tip, is to stop requiring perfection and completion before you get to what truly matters to you. And the last tip that I have for you is to look for the in-between spaces. I have worked a regular day job for much of my adult life. I don't have the story of I had a 6-figure income and a high responsibility job when I decided to. That's not my story. My story is working very regular jobs while also pursuing whatever it was that I loved and yearned for, aspired to, whether that was the arts. Like there are many times when I have learned my lines on lunch break or paid for my art classes with my salary. I trained for coaching. All the while I did my training for coaching, I was working in a regular 9-to-5 job. And so that might be your story, or your story might be that you have other responsibilities and that take up a lot of your time. So I'm inviting you to look for all the in-between spaces. Like, can you listen to exquisite music or an inspiring podcast while you do the groceries? Can you dictate a haiku as you walk home? And you keep a little sketchbook in your pocket, a little notebook in your pocket, and gather your inspirations, your ideas. Notice color combinations that you love and want to explore. Notice, be an observer of life. And trust. This is the other thing too, is I think that we have this idea that because we have all these other responsibilities that we are not an artist, that we're not truly a photographer, a poet, a performance artist. But really what defines that is not what else you do. It's that you do this. That you be in action around your art, that you actually be creating. And the more you create, the more evidence that you give to yourself that you are an artist. And part of that is this weird perception thing that has more of an impact than you might think. I often think about, just to set this up, I'm going to use a little exercise that my meditation teacher, Susan Piver, uses, where she says, okay, draw your attention to your left shoulder. Okay, now to your right ankle. How about to the back of your head? See how easy that was to shift your attention? And then Susan is bringing it back to how that's as simple as an act as it is to bring your attention to your breath. In the same way, I want to invite you to take where you think your identity lives and place it intentionally. And so we tend to sit our identity in whatever is taking up the most of our time. And yet often we have lack of control over that, or we're spending a lot of time in something that is really based on sustenance needs, and making sure that we're secure and nourished and taken care of, that we can pay our bills and be responsible for our lives. Maybe that is a part of our identity. But also we can go to dance class once a week and rest our identity in that. We can write poetry at lunchtime and rest our identity in that. We can sew beautiful outfits for special occasions and rest our identity in that. And I think this is part of the reason why I created the Studio Yearbook, which is, I was going to show you guys my dream board. This is my dream board, but the Studio Yearbook is a seasonal fill-in-the-blank journal, and it is a daily practice. And we also have monthly practices and full moon practices and new moon practices, but it's a daily practice. And one of the reasons I created it is to remind you on a daily basis that your creative spirit is present. It is who you are. It is what you lead with. And giving yourself that acknowledgement, centering your identity in that really changes things. So next time you are meeting somebody new, or you're at a appropriately socially distanced party and someone says, "What do you do?" You can say both. You could say, "You know what? My day job is blah, 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 blah. But what I really do, what I love, where my heart is in the collages I make. I really am an artist at heart." It feels different. You bring your energy back to what your spirit knows as truth, not necessarily what you spend your day-to-day or sustenance time on. Those things are necessary. They're important, but they don't necessarily define you. You define you. And if you are here, and if you are a member of the studio, if you are watching the BTS, I imagine that identity has a lot to do with being an artist, with being a creative spirit, finding your way in the world. And I hope that this gave you something not just wonderful to think about, but to put into action in your life. Some strategies you can use to get to your work, to remember who you are, and to make it central to how you show up to your days. Have a wonderful week in your studio. Remember, your life is your studio. And if you need more inspiration, more support, more encouragement, more immersing yourself in a creative life, come on over to openthedoor.ca. Join the studio. There are lots of resources for you there. I got a great message today that said, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea there would be these many resources." So I'm so delighted to share that with you. Get your Studio Yearbook. The print copies are on sale for this week only. Again, go out and over to openthedoor.ca. You'll see a link to the Studio Yearbook. And subscribe, leave me a comment. Let me know how you get to your art amidst the everyday. I'll see you next week.